A brand new set of Lorcana is hitting shelves imminently in Into the Inklands, the third ever set released from Ravensburger, and with a brand new card type in locations. We've gathered all the best cards of each type and colour to give you a helping hand as to what you should be on the lookout for in your boosters and on the singles market. So without further ado, I'm Wheels from Dicebreaker, and these are the best cards from Disney's Lorcana Into the Inklands. Aggro players rejoice because Into the Inklands is going hard on supporting speedy playstyles. If you've lost count of the amount of games you were on the brink of winning before a Be Prepared or Grab Your Swords wiped your board and left you flailing to a loss, then Perdita is here to save you. Amber has established itself as the best colour for getting your vital characters back out of the discard pile, but this is the first time we've ever seen a card bring your characters from discard straight onto the playing field. Perdita is a 1/6 legendary that quests for 2 and allows you to play 2 cost or less characters directly from your discard for free whenever she enters play or quests. That's an outrageous bit of value attached to one of your characters, and it also protects you against the classic 1-2 punch of the meta-defining Ruby Amethyst control deck of set 2, which would wipe your board with Be Prepared and then answer the first character you play with a Lady Tremaine, which would force you to sacrifice it. As Perdita activates her ability as soon as she enters play, you'll effectively have a nice little bodyguard to protect her with. Not to mention that even if said bodyguard is dealt with, Perdita is, well, able to bring them back next turn when she quests. Pair Perdita with some 2-cost characters that have abilities trigger when they enter play, like Pinocchio, Talkative Puppet, and you've got yourself an effective little recursion engine going. What could easily be described as the best song in the set, let alone the best song in Amber, is a card that finally gives us a reliable answer to some of the most maligned cards in all of Lorcana's current meta. For 2 ink, the Bare Necessities allows you to peek at an opponent's entire hand, which even by itself is a fantastic ability that's currently only available to Sapphire players through Nothing to Hide. The added bonus for the Bare Necessities, and the reason we'll likely be seeing an entire playset of those in pretty much every Amber deck, is that it allows you to pick any non-character card from your opponent's freshly revealed hand and force them to discard it. Say goodbye to Be Prepared, Grab Your Swords, A Whole New World, Dragonfire, Fishbone Quill, or any amount of the incredibly powerful and game-changing non-character cards that can win a game all on their own. In a setting that is currently dominated by control decks using sweeping board wipe effects to slow the game, this should provide a real burst of energy to the meta. Into the Inklands isn't the strongest showing for Amber items, and as such, Wildcat's Wrench isn't going to be making any headlines. However, with the brand new location card type rearing its shiny head in Disney Lorcana's third set, it makes sense to pack some items that will help you keep them around if you plan to utilize them. Currently, there's only one card in the entirety of Lorcana's pool that straight up banishes a location, so almost all decks are going to be trying to remove them with damage, either from their characters or from songs like And Then Along Came Zeus. For that reason, Wildcat's Wrench's ability to heal your locations for 2 damage per turn should make them even more annoying to get rid of. With Amber's explicitly aggressive strategy in Lorcana's third set, Into the Inklands, players will be encouraged to play some of their fastest lore generators. Cards from set 1 like Lilo, Making a Wish, are able to rocket players ahead in aid of winning the game as fast as possible, but with absolutely pathetic stat lines of 1 strength and 1 toughness, they don't really stick around very long. Tiana's Palace allows any characters there complete protection from enemy challenges, as though they were hiding behind a bodyguard character or were given evasive. It's a great way of keeping your key components safe from enemy control tactics, and its chunky 8 willpower will make it difficult to get off the board, providing a decent roadblock for your opponents. If Amethyst wasn't already powerful enough, there's a terrifying new synergy built into their colours with the release of Into the Inklands. Amethyst characters were already the best at drawing you cards, though Sapphire certainly competed with that title in set 2, but now you'll get a heck of a lot more bang for your buck when you flood your hand with new cards. Jafar Striking Illusionist is a 4/5, wow that's good, who can shift for 5, oh that's great, has evasive, good lord, and as long as he's exerted he gives you a lore every single time you draw a card? What? I almost shouldn't need to explain why that's absurdly powerful, but let me give you an example. It's turn 5, and on a previous turn, you put out one of the many powerful Jafar cards that cost less than 5 ink. Perhaps the Royal Vizier, because we'll be comboing with steel for this one. On your turn, you get yourself to 5 ink and shift Jafar Royal Vizier into Jafar Striking Illusionist. As he's shifted, he can act right away. Jafar exerts to sing a whole new world and immediately draws you a brand new hand of cards and nets you an absurd 7 lore. That is absolutely game-winning levels of lore collection for turn 5. Bear in mind as well that if your opponent doesn't find a way to deal with Jafar on their turn, which is definitely a risk with their hand of 7 new cards, then you can just sing a whole new world again if you drew it from the last one. If you get lucky enough to draw a whole new world again in your third hand, hardcast it and you've won the game. What? The big bad of the story, Ursula, features on Amethyst's top song of the set with a brand new way for Amethyst players to rummage through their deck in search for key combo pieces or answers to their opponent's threats. From the classic villain song Poor Unfortunate Souls, the Boss is on a Roll allows a player to sing or spend 3 ink to look at the top 5 cards of their deck and place them back on the top or bottom of their deck in any order they choose. If you're guaranteed to draw cards on your turn, they'll be able to have a huge amount of control over what you're picking up, or just set up your next few turns with the cards you need when you need them. If you combo this with Emerald's brand new double singing Ursula, you could have seen a third of your deck by turn 4, placing you in complete control of what cards you need and when you need them. With set 3 of Lorcana now available to all, a brand new payoff is also available for Amethyst's ability to tweak the top of their deck. Amethyst have had the ability to manipulate the top card of their deck since the first chapter, with Yzma Alchemist for example, who is able to look at and put the top card of your deck onto the bottom after questing if you're not a fan of what you're set to be drawing next. With the brand new song that we just mentioned, The Boss is on a Roll, bumping that up to look at and rearrange the top 5 cards of your deck, you're about to have a lot of control over what you draw and when, so it makes sense that the brand new The Sorcerer's Hat will reward you for seeing the future. The first item to be available as an enchanted rare, the Sorcerer's Hat allows you to exchange 1 ink, and exerting the item, for the chance to declare the name of any card in Lorcana. Once you do, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's the same card that you declared, you get to put it straight into your hand. Now that's magic. Easily the most eye-catching location from the set, the Queen's Castle asks players to spend just 1 ink to move a character here on their turn. Should both the characters and location survive the opponent's turn, then every single character at the location will allow you to draw an additional card. That is absolutely absurd levels of card draw if not dealt with, and could see Amethyst players accidentally drawing through their entire deck if not careful. 4 ink isn't the cheapest location you can find, but it can be inked and the value is definitely there, especially for control players who want to continuously be removing opponents' threats whilst keeping their hand nice and full of cards. Emerald is already considered one of the best colours to play if you like using Lorcana's Floodborn Shift mechanic, the ability to play character cards for cheaper by putting them on top of a character with the same name that you already have in play. The only problem with trying to utilise Shift as an ability is that it relies on you taking up space in your deck for cheaper versions of the characters you want to shift out. That's fine if those cheap versions of characters are decent includes in your deck, but there's a whole list of Floodborn characters that simply don't have a cheap enough or effective enough early game play to shift onto. Enter Morph Space Goo, a 2-cost 2/1 that has the ability to act as any character in Lorcana for the purposes of shifting onto him. Your pet cards that were too expensive in previous sets, like the wonderful Fairy Godmother Mystic Armourer or Snow White Well-Wisher, will now be a lot easier to shift out if they're paired with Emerald and this globby little guy. You also won't be forced to play 1 or 2 drops that don't fit your strategy just for the sake of cheapening your late game cards. The other terrifying thing about Morph from an opponent's perspective is that it doesn't telegraph what character you're about to shift. Up until now, seeing a cheap Stitch or Cinderella would give you the sense that your opponent can probably shift into the Rockstar or Stout-Hearted variants later in the game. With Morph, you can have absolutely no idea what's coming. Oh god. Banishing items didn't seem like such an enormous deal back in the hazy days of the first chapter, when the worst item you could see was like a magic mirror or a shield of virtue. Ah, what sweet summer children we were. Cut to set 2 and you'll struggle to find a steel deck list that isn't running a couple of Benja characters that can banish an item on play, because items are all of a sudden one of the most dangerous card types you can come up against. Fishbone Quills and Sleepy's Flutes are usually a lovely target to get rid of with some targeted item removal, but with a brand new suite of deadly items to come up against like the Lucky Dime, the Sumerian Talisman or the Vault Door, it's time to take item banishment even more seriously. Lucky we are then that Emerald are the next colour to receive some item hate in Lorcana set 3. with this song providing a nice and cheap way to deal with something tricky before it becomes a problem without disrupting the curve of your deck. One deck archetype I've been particularly excited to see the rise of as each new set of Disney's Lorcana has revealed itself is what Magic the Gathering fans would call the Spell Slinger deck. These decks utilize cheap spells, or in Lorcana case actions, that replace themselves with card draw to get value out of cards that incentivize you to be playing multiple cards per turn. We've already got a few characters that want you to be casting multiple actions per turn in Pete Bad Guy and Minnie Mouse Wide-Eyed Diver. Now, with the brand new airfoil item, you'll also be able to reward yourself with some free card draw by exerting it on your turn. There's a catch though. Just like Sleepy's Flute from the previous set, only working if you've played a song this turn, the airfoil only gives you that free card if you've played 2 actions this turn. The perfect excuse to start working some cantrips into your Emerald decks. If you thought Tiana's Palace was good at protecting your characters, wait until you see Fang. For the cost of 4 ink to play it and 2 ink to move a character there, Fang will give all present characters both evasive and ward. That not only stops any non-evasive characters from challenging them, but also completely halts your opponent from targeting those characters with any actions or abilities. Ward is one of the most difficult to deal with keywords that an opposing character can have, as it severely limits your options to either mass removal, like be prepared and grab your swords, or forcing you to swing in with one of your characters. And as it's paired with evasive, that stops most characters in the game from being able to challenge them, Fang will make bodyguard characters look severely lacking in comparison. No colour is better at getting rid of enemy characters than Ruby, and that's not about to change with set 3. We already had the much maligned board wipe of Be Prepared, the classic Dragonfire of targeted removal, and recently Lady Tremaine has been forcing players to banish one of their own characters whenever she enters play, even getting around ward effects. With Into the Inklands, we have yet another way to disrupt your enemy strategy by popping out a Prince Eric Expert Helmsman. A 4-cost 2/2, Prince Eric borrows some tricks from Emerald's playbook by stapling a nasty condition on it for anyone who wants to swing into this 2-lore generator. Whenever Prince Eric is banished, you'll get to banish one of your opponent's characters in return. Prince Eric is nice and modal as well, acting as a quester that your opponent will hesitate to get rid of if you're in a position of control, or as a more aggressive banisher when you need to deal with your opponent. Swing Eric into a character he can take out on his own, and as long as he's banished in return, you've got yourself a 2 birds and 1 stone situation. Readying up a character so you can have them take a second game action before your turn ends is a fantastic function for most Ruby decks to work with, even if they can't quest for a second time. It allows characters to both quest and then still challenge or sing on the same turn, giving you extra bang for your buck. Well, what if I told you that for a very small price you could use 1 action to ready up every character you have? On Your Feet Now is a 4-cost uninkable action that readies every character you own in exchange for each of those characters having been dealt a single damage. As with most card games, what seems like a big cost is never as costly as it might seem, especially when paired with Amber or Sapphire's ability to convert healing into value, or Amethyst's new ability to move damage from your characters to opponents' characters. Ruby is absolutely excellent at swinging characters in for big damage and gradually taking down an opponent's entire board with your high strength values. The only problem is, Ruby characters aren't exactly the most survivable of the bunch, especially when loaded up with the reckless keyword that forces them to challenge every turn if able. The Sumerian Talisman is a perfect addition to those combative decks that want to challenge as much as possible, as it will reward you with instant no limits card draw whenever you trade one of your characters with one of your opponents. Combine it with a deck full of rush characters and you could be dealing some serious damage on your turns whilst refilling your hand every time. Quite clearly signposted as a card to pair with Ruby character Jim Hawkins' Space Traveler, which can put it into play for free, the RLS Legacy comes with 2 abilities attached to it. The first is more of a balancer, which essentially reads, the first character to move here costs 2 extra to move, hence why Jim is such a great pairing as he can move there for free immediately. The second takes a leaf out of Fang's book and gives any characters who are here the evasive keyword, making them very tricky to challenge, and much better at challenging your opponent's characters. You won't get the lovely ward keyword as well, but as the RLS Legacy is giving you 2 lore per turn and essentially comes as a free package deal with Jim Hawkins, if you have both cards in hand that is, it's definitely a tempting trade-off. It seems the theme for Into the Inklands is to give some of the ink colours a lore payoff for things that they're already good at doing, and what does Sapphire do better than give you extra ink on your turns? Having a huge supply of ink at your disposal is already a massive advantage to have against your opponents, and Grandma Tala, Spirit of the Ocean, turns that functionality into a game-winning strategy. A 7-cost 4/8 who can shift for 5, Grandma Tala has the ability, Do You Know Who You Are?, that rewards you with a lore whenever you place a card into your inkwell. Now that includes inking a card like you normally would each turn, but that also includes all the ways in which Sapphire can get extra ink on their turns, including songs like One Jump Ahead and the new Friend Like Me, items like the Fishbone Quill, and the multitude of characters that mess with your inkwell, like Belle, Strange but Special, or even an opponent using a Hades Infernal Schemer against you. This has made these 2-drop Grandma Talas from set 1 even more powerful, as they now act as a shift target to reduce the big Grandma's cost, but also they can activate its abilities and will also force your opponent to help you ramp by removing them from the board early game to stop you from shifting and allowing you to eke out more ink advantage. That was a hard sentence to say. What is easily the biggest game accelerator we've seen so far, Friend Like Me puts the top 3 cards of both yours and your opponent's deck into your respective inkwells face down and exerted. Having it be universal makes sure that this card is nice and balanced, but with one key component added to the mix, you'll be sure to grab more value out of your ramp than your opponent. Of course, combined with Grandma Tala, Spirit of the Ocean, you'll not only be getting yourself 3 more ink to spend next turn, but also 3 lore as well. And remember, that grows with each instance of Tala on your board, with a full 4 characters netting you a ridiculous 12 lore from just 1 cast of Friend Like Me. 5 ink for a ramping action ain't cheap, so being able to sing this will definitely make the difference, and with your Talas out via an early shift, you'll definitely have someone on board who can afford to sing it. I mean, what else? The first ever legendary item printed in Lorcana and a whopping 7 costs to play a card which can't be inked should probably give you some indication how strong the item can be in the right deck. For 2 ink and tapping the lucky dime, you'll add lore equal to the questing value of any one of your characters. There is no better fit for this, of course, than with Tamatoa So Shiny from Lorcana's first chapter. He adds a lore for every item you own, and in an item-focused Sapphire deck, not only can you grab yourself a silly amount of ink to make that steep cost not so much to worry about, it also means you can get yourself the lore that Tamatoa provides directly on the turn you play him by utilizing the lucky dime. This card could seriously speed up the usually quite slow item and ramp decks that we've been seeing from Sapphire players in set 2 to a scary degree. There's a reason Belle's house was one of the locations lucky enough to receive an enchanted rare variant in Into the Inklands. The first time we've seen enchanted rare cards that aren't characters, which is kind of cool. This is definitely a potent card to add to the already popular item-based decks that have been creeping up the meta since the second half of Rise of the Floodborn's time in the spotlight. The ever-present Porpsicle that we won't soon see the end of now might as well read, put this into play for free and draw a card, because if you have even a single character located at Belle's house, every single item card in your hand just became 1 ink cheaper to play. That's not the first item each turn, no, that's every item you play, and with Belle's house's ability to speed up the curve of the usually quite slow Sapphire Steel deck of set 2, we could see a real increase in the deck's potency in this new meta. Steel has some of the best defensive tools on the market, with access to both bodyguards and the powerful new resist mechanic, and the former has become an important keyword to build around as of set 3's release, with plenty of synergies rewarding you for having loads of beefy boys to hold the line in front of your other characters. Little John, Resourceful Outlaw, combines both of these powerful mechanics to further incentivize you towards a strong front line. A cost 6 4/5 that can be shifted for 4 and quests for 2, John's stat line isn't exactly making headlines, but his killer ability will certainly beckon defensive players to build around him. OK Big Shot gives all of your characters with the bodyguard keyword a boost of resist +1 and also allows them to quest for an additional lore, but only when Little John is exerted. turning The Prince Never Gives Up from Rise of the Floodborn into a 1/3 resist +2 3-lore bodyguard is pretty incredible value. Not to mention that Little John needing to be exerted to have his effect take hold is an easy cost to pay considering how many resistant bodyguards your opponents will likely have to get through to challenge him. Well, with all these brand new location cards entering play, it makes sense to carry some tech that can deal with them, and Steel's only song of the set is here to help out. For 4 ink or exerting a big singer, you can dish out a massive 5 damage to any character or location of your choice. Locations already have an impressive amount of willpower to them, which makes sense as they're always open to challenges. So much so that a standard smash or let the storm rage on probably isn't going to cut it if you're trying to take one down. That's where Zeus's mighty bolt comes in, and I'm sure this will be a quick include to all of those Amber Steel flute song decks that have been kicking around and dishing out damage. Whilst they're useful for dealing with locations, they're also a way of taking out those annoying characters with a ton of resist strapped onto them. Ironically, Zeus's giant lightning bolt is one of the best ways to banish a Hercules divine hero. Trouble in the family, I guess. The brand new shiny card type of locations are the biggest poster child of Lorcana's third set, Into the Inklands, so it makes sense that an item that gives you huge amounts of savings towards playing them would make for a very popular and powerful item and addition to any deck that plans to use them. The Map of Treasure Planet is a 3-cost inkable item that allows you to exert it in exchange for cheapening the next location card you play by 1. Similar to a lantern for characters, for example, but it also has an extremely useful static ability for any of your characters in play. Show the Way makes any movement action that you take with your characters cost 1 less ink to do so. With so many locations allowing you to move to them for just 1 ink, this essentially makes those locations free to visit, or at least it cheapens any big costed moves that you might be planning to take. Anything that drops a certain cost indefinitely will always work out as a good investment in the long run, and the Map of Treasure Planet is no different. An item card from set 2 that seemed to largely fly under the radar outside of the most competitive players is Mouse Armor, an item that can be exerted to give any of your characters resist +1. It's no secret how powerful and game shifting even 1 or 2 stacks of resist on the right character can be, and with Maui's Place of Exile you can start sharing the love. Rather than having to pick a single character like you would with Mouse Armor, Maui's Place of Exile grants resist +1 to every single character there. It's a little more expensive to invest into, but with enough characters turning up there, the benefit should easily outweigh the costs. Especially with the new push towards supporting bodyguard characters in set 3, a keyword that massively benefits from making your characters as tanky as physically possible. Well, there you have it. These videos have certainly gotten even longer with the addition of location cards to the mix, but let us know what your favourite cards from Lorcana's 3rd ever set are in the comments below. Please also give us a like and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and you can get notified whenever we put a new video live by ringing that bell down below. Find way more card recommendations and Lorcana news over on dicebreaker.com, and until I see you on the next one, have a lovely day.